Welcome on to the very first episode of the Faster Beyond 50 podcast. My name is Brad Nadalt. We've got the coach, Lindsay Parry, with us. And today we are doing a deep dive on proprioception, particularly for over 50s running. We're going to talk about what it is and why it's important for runners, especially over 50s runners, how to sort of the role of proprioception in your running, how to assess and diagnose any issues when it comes to proprioception, and also how to use it to improve your training. Lindsay, great to catch up. I've been itching to do this podcast. You've recently just got back from the Olympics in Paris. While you were at the Olympics and working hard, I was plotting and scheming, and I was like, we have to do this podcast. I've been itching to do it. And as soon as you touched down, I think you weren't even back in South Africa for a couple of hours. I sent you a message and said, hey, listen, we're doing this podcast. When have you got time to record? And here we are. I don't know if you're as excited as I am about this, but I am so amped because this has been in the works for a long, long time.
Yeah, Brad, very, very excited about the whole series that we have got planned and lined up. Because this is essentially where we started. So, yeah, I never know how many people know that we are business partners, full on, and have been for very, very long time. But it all started with podcasting. The two of us in a room, in a hotel room at that, huddled over your iPhone, and we started. So, yeah, once you mentioned you were keen to start a new podcast, that's straight up my street. I love talking about things. And so very excited to get this going and looking forward to down the road when we open this up to other people asking questions, having some cool guests on. But yeah, today's one is a good start, interesting topic, and a great way to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, Lindsay, exactly. And you sort of alluded to what we're going to do with this. We're going to try and mix things up a little bit. We're not quite sure sort of what you want to hear and see. So we're going to try different things. So today, as I said, we're doing a deep dive on proprioception. We're going to be getting guests on, people within our community who are doing amazing things, just to sort of find out a little bit about them and help them on their running journey. We're going to get some outside experts on as well to talk about different things. And then we're going to answer questions, because that's exactly how we started, was answering questions from within our community on this podcast, and we'll give you opportunities later on to ask your question, and I'll tell you exactly how you can get your question posed to us and how we could potentially answer it here on the podcast. So, Lindsay, let's jump straight into it and talk about proprioception. It's a huge word, but it plays a big role, particularly as we get older, and can have a massive impact on our running. So first of all, what is proprioception? Why is it so important for runners, particularly over 50?
Yeah, so I mean, the kind of, if you want to call it a dictionary definition of proprioception, is our body's awareness of itself in space and our response to a kind of dynamic and changing environment. More specifically, as it pertains to our audience, really, that proprioception is our body's response to the signals that it is getting through its neural pathways. So in other words, our actual physical feeling of the ground and things that are happening to us around us, and the body's then nervous response to that in terms of switching on and switching off muscles to respond to that environment and to keep us in equilibrium or balance. So kind of if you're just standing there, then you don't feel it anymore, but effectively there are subtle shifts in weight, and your feet will sense those, and it'll switch on your calf and your shin muscle, for example, on, off, on, off, on, off. And that's kind of how we are standing up straight. And now when we start to move and we are walking, those sensations or your body sensing the shift when we're walking and when we're running and how we land, and then the adjustment of that is all in response to how our nerves are responding. So in a normal system that is operating as it should, we've got what we call Golgi bodies, and those are in the tendons and ligaments. And as those tendons and ligaments stretch, and in response to literal nerves that are attached in our skin and primarily in our feet. But of course, proprioception also takes other inputs like from our eyes, but primarily from those goggly bodies and from the nerves in our feet. We are then constantly making adjustments and switching on the right muscles on and off. And that's literally how, when you hit the ground, that we stop the ankle from breaking, because the tendons literally tell your body when what muscles need to be switching on and off to keep that movement going, keep that movement going efficiently. So two things. In fact, I'm probably going to jump, if I keep talking, I'm going to jump into one of your questions. So yeah, so perhaps you can
so let me
tell me what's on your mind.
Let me jump in there, Lindsay. So this obviously all happens subconsciously. I mean, it's not something that we are aware of. It's happening in the background sort of all the time. And from when we're little, as we grow up, that's the way we learn to stand. That's the way we learn to walk. It's our body sort of adjusting to the stimulus it's getting from its outside environment, and then adjusting so that we don't fall over, essentially. But as we get older, things change within our bodies. Obviously, we're not as strong as we were. Muscles, tendons, ligaments don't work as well as they used to. What are some of the impacts with your proprioception, or the impact on your proprioception as we get older?
Yeah, 100%. You know, one of the things that I didn't touch on there, and as I said, there are multiple inputs. Our eyes are one of those. Our ears, and our inner ear in particular, is also vital to that whole balance. I mean, proprioception is probably a fancy word for balance, but it's because it's all encompassing. It's not just about physically being able to balance. So you're absolutely right. These things change over time. Eyesight deteriorates. There's definitely a hardening of the fluid that moves around in our ears. Our body's ability to sense and the actual physical touch on the nerves, as well as a degeneration in tendons, ligaments, therefore leads to effectively dormant goggly bodies. So these are all processes that happen over age. And to kind of highlight what happens, we can actually use, when you were younger, think about this, that when you got an injury, that's one of the first things that we get is neural inhibition. So your body actually switches off those goggly bodies. And the reason it does that is because it actually doesn't want movement, because if we do movement on an injured limb or joint, you can cause more damage. So there's a much more subtle form of that happening as we get older, because there is a very strict use it or use it policy in play as we get older. And that really accelerates in our 50s, 60s, and particularly in our 70s. So you get this slow degeneration in the neural pathways, in the way that those goggly bodies function, how your ears help you with that proprioception, your eyesight is deteriorating. And that then leads to obviously a decay in your biomechanics when you're running, in your coordination, in your ability to perform the tasks that you'd like to perform. But very importantly, moving away from running a little bit, is that it can start to impact on your activities of daily living, your ability to get yourself out of a chair, to get into a chair, to get in and out of a moving vehicle, taking stairs. You get to a point where you can't take stairs unless you have got like a proper barrier to hold on to as you go up and down the stairs. So in its kind of end game, this loss of proprioception can really start to affect the way that we just function every day, but it will have a hugely negative impact on our ability to train and run, and in particular to do that injury-free, because muscles aren't going to do the work that they're supposed to do, and so they're not going to turn on and off at the appropriate time, and that puts other muscles and structures under unnecessary pressure, and that can lead to an increase in the rates of injury. It can definitely, as we get older, it's one of the major reasons why people start to fall as they get older. and in particular fall during exercise.
I was going to ask that. I mean, the role of proprioception in running, and we've spoken about these things happening in the background, but it is super important when it comes to running, and particularly, as you say, staying injury-free, your balance and stability is super, super important. What are some of the common signs that a runner might have impaired proprioception?
So it starts when you get up in the morning. So if you are finding when you get up in the morning that your first kind of couple of steps are getting a little bit wobbly and you almost have to find your sea legs, that would kind of be one of your early signs. If you have difficulty staying on one leg, often you can see it in someone's gait, particularly in a running gait. And to be honest, I've been asked this question a few times over the last kind of year, is like, are you injured? And that's because my gait is starting to heavily favor one side. And that, people sometimes think, ooh, that's strength training. And then they try and fix that because it's an imbalance in strength training. But that can be a sign of that starting of the deterioration of the proprioception, because if I'm losing proprioception or some of my sensory input, say on my left leg, then my right leg is going to compensate for that. And even though I don't feel it and I don't feel any pain, my gait is then starting to change. So changes in gait, changes in your ability to lower yourself down into low chairs or to pick yourself up, those aren't always strictly related to strength. Because when our proprioception starts to go, the muscle might be strong enough, but it actually switches off. So it doesn't activate in the way that it's supposed to activate. And then kind of just moving again to the more subtle differences. And that's like a complete decrease in efficiency when you are running. So you're kind of feeling like you're running at the same effort, but instead of your performance dropping off slightly over age, it's dropping off quite a long way. And that's because we can get to this point where our very small intrinsic or stabilizing muscles aren't doing the work they're supposed to do because that proprioception is decreasing. And then that means that your mobilizers, your big muscle groups, the things that are supposed to be responsible for propelling you, like your quadriceps and glutes, are now having to take over some stability function. And so they also can't contribute to movements in the way that they are supposed to, or can contribute to movements. And so our efficiency of our running starts to decrease. So those are just some of the ways that you can start to see or feel the impacts of proprioception, and to give you a clue that there's something that needs to be done about that, your stability and mobility.
Okay, so you've given us some almost visual cues of what can happen. But like, if somebody's listening to this or watching this, is there anything that they can do? Are there any like assessments or tests that they could possibly do to assess where their proprioception is at right now, as an over 50s runner?
So look, the very simplest way of doing it is to literally stand on one leg in bare feet while you're brushing your teeth. If you have got reasonable proprioception, should be able to balance on one leg and then the other during the duration of brushing your teeth. And if you are a little bit surprised by how wobbly you are, maybe you can hold it, but you're like, whoa, that's a little bit wobbly. You can also do a slightly more formal test, and do a stalk stand test. So if you have one leg on the ground, and so let's say that's the left leg, you put your two hands on your hips and you lift up your right leg and you place your foot on your knee. So you literally, it's called the stalk stand because now you look like a stork or a flamingo just chilling in the pan there on one leg. And first see how that balance is when you have your eyes open. Okay, and time yourself and say, okay, what's the difference in time between my right and my left? And then if we really want to test the proprioception just from the neural pathways that are actually in our feet and in our tendons, you can close your eyes and repeat that test with closed eyes, okay? And then have a look and see if there's a difference between right and left, which will be your first ports of call. And then there are a couple of things that you can look at. So if you do a stalk stand and you can hold your position for more than 50 seconds without like really wobbling all over the place, that's excellent. 40 to 50 seconds is good. Average is 25 to 39, fair 10 to 24. And if you're less than that, you really do want to do something about it, because then you probably are at risk of falling during exercise. If you get to lower than 10, you're probably at risk of just falling full stop. And particularly when you get into your 70s and 80s, falling is literally one of the worst things that can happen, because broken bones at that age has one of the highest associations with mortality in elderly people.
We'll get into sort of some of the things you can do to improve your proprioception in a mo. But Lindsay, I had a little quiet chuckle to myself, because as you started explaining the stalk test there, I thought you were going to launch into us doing the hokey pokey for a moment, the way you started that. So I was going to tell everybody to put their left leg in and their right leg out and shake it all about. But it's quite interesting, because we did a video on our YouTube channel on the stalk stand and that stalk stand test. And a lot of questions came from that. They were like, it's amazing when you do it, you realize how bad it generally is. Like, we think we're okay, but when we do it, especially as we get older, it becomes, and when you close your eyes, how bad it actually is. And a lot of the questions there were like, well, we need to get better at the stalk stand, but that's just an indicator that your proprioception's not great. It's not that you want to do a perfect stalk stand for as long as possible. That is a great sign, but that's not the only way to improve your proprioception. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things we can do to improve this over time.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly to your point, is that stalk stand has just shown us a high correlation with people that are at high risk for injury and or falling. And sure, just doing the stalk stand will help your proprioception on a number of levels, but it's not going to fix proprioception, and it's not going to fix it during movement. So one of the very simple ways, and we need multiple, and I think that's important, is that we need to do multiple layers of improving our proprioception. And part of that proprioception is actually in the strength and certainly in the activation of muscles. And so we do need to do some strength training as part of this process. And that needs to then be in parallel with improving our stability, in short. Okay. So the very simple base layer, how do I do this? Well, I do the top part of my jaw. While I'm brushing the top part of my jaw, I balance on one leg. And while I do the bottom part of my jaw when I'm brushing my teeth, I stand on the other leg. So that would be a very simple, good way of starting to improve your proprioception. Okay, then we get some devices that make it really easy and almost accelerate that proprioception. And those are like stability pads, Bosu balls, hedgehogs. These are things that you can buy easily enough at any sports store, really.
Okay.
But the important thing here is
we're not talking a real hedgehog, just so that people know. It's a piece before people get cross with us, Lindsay. We just need to make sure it's a piece of gym equipment called a hedgehog. It's not the actual real hedgehog.
It's a small little half ball, if you like, with spikes. So it gives your foot a gentle massage while you're doing it. I mean, I'm jumping around a little bit now, but it's just because I don't want to forget. But actually, that's really a good way of also just helping to wake the feet up and make sure the feet are playing their role in this proprioceptive journey. And that's to actually get a soft, spiky ball and really massage your feet with that ball. So it really just wakes up those nerve endings and gets your feet nice and loose and spread out, so you can spread those toes out, and that really will help with the proprioception. But then, yes, using these Bosu balls and stability pads can really then help throw you out of kilter and force those goggly bodies and all those nerves and everything to start doing their job properly so that they start switching the muscles on and off at the right time. And then we want to get a little bit more dynamic about it, so you can use those same devices and balance with your eyes closed so that you remove that visual stimulus, and that then will help you to improve that proprioception even further. Then you can be balancing on those single legs on those wobbly surfaces with people throwing balls at you and catching, you're catching these balls left hand, right hand, in the middle, whatever, just really keeping you on your toes from that point of view. Something as simple as actually sitting on a Bosu, not a Bosu ball, on like a stability ball at your desk and shifting your weight and feeling the changes in the shifting. That's also a really simple way of getting that early stimulus and muscle activation going. And then we've got to move into the next phase of training, because really what we want to do is we want to take it from that point now where we maybe have improved our balance, our stability, the ability of your body to get those signals going, but we want to transfer that into movement, because that's quite important, as that's the next step. So getting yourself something like a mini trampoline, doing some gentle jogging and hopping on one leg for a while, then the other leg for a while, and then taking that and moving it onto the grass or the driveway, where you kind of hop in squares on one leg, or I'd actually start up and down on just straight up and down, your ability to just hop one place, starting with very gentle hops and then turning those into much higher hops, then hopping around in side to side, then hopping around in squares, getting yourself a skipping rope and doing some skipping on both legs, then one leg, then the other leg, doing dynamic movements like step ups onto a low step, and just gradually moving from this point where you are always incorporating some stimulus in terms of just improving pure balance, which then has a direct correlation into the stalk stand, and then moving that into a more dynamic environment where you're still working on stability and balance, but through movement and doing movement. And of course, as we get to those stages where the hopping on the trampoline or hopping on the driveway, then there's also really important strength components. And so we don't want to separate these things completely. We need to be working on them concurrently. So you're doing your strength training, you're doing your stability work, and then we bring these two things together, and your stalk stand will improve, your strength will improve, your performance will improve. Very importantly, your risk of injury will decrease. And when you are well into your 70s, your falling risk will decrease, and that's huge.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what we are chasing by doing this too. Lindsay, what role does footwear play in this? I mean, obviously, running shoes have changed a lot over the years. What role do shoes play? I mean, you talk about doing the stalk stand and they're doing it barefoot, but we don't run barefoot, most of us. What's the deal? If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury-free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsay and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K, and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now, or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there.
So that's a super cool question. And if we look at the kind of evolution of footwear, especially over the last 10 years, where we went into a very minimalist phase of like people recognizing that shoes were actually wrecking our normal proprioception, not just running shoes, but just wearing shoes in general. So kind of high-heeled shoes, high platform shoes, all of these things take away your body's ability to actually feel where it is in relation to the ground. Okay. And running shoes kind of also went into this extra cushioning, stack heights, 12 to 14 mil heel to toe drops. And then we went into this phase of very minimalist, and people were were trying to move away from these 10, 12 mil heel to toe drops and going all the way down to ground zero, and anything in between. So we had this recognition that we actually want some response from the environment. And then over the past sort of 5 years, we've gone into the super shoe generation, where we've now pushed in this carbon plate, which is super stiff. And to allow for that carbon plate not to cause other injuries, we've got this like really top end lightweight foam, but again on quite a high stack height, but not necessarily such a high heel to toe drop. So a lot of those are still in the 4 to 8 millimeter heel to toe range. And so that is going to have another impact on your proprioception. So just given the amount of cushioning and the materials that they use, I do feel like even the carbon shoes are better in terms of the proprioceptive stuff than the 10, 12, 15 years ago shoe. But I do think it is important to have a little bit of a mix. You don't want to be doing all of your running in a shoe that gives you such aggressive feedback, and you do want to have a more neutral, simplistic. I don't want to use the word minimalist because I feel like that's got other issues that it brings to the party, but the one thing that it really helps with is that proprioceptive input while you are running.
Absolutely. Lindsay, let's talk a little bit about, I mean, you mentioned injuries and the role that proprioception plays with injury prevention, but what if you are struggling with an injury? Will sorting this out and improving your proprioception help with the rehabilitation and sort of recovery from that injury?
So you cannot fully recover from an injury until you have sorted out your proprioception, because part of the mechanism of the injury is that it switches off. So it deactivates muscles. It prevents them from doing the job they're supposed to be doing because your body is trying to protect you from the pain. So part of that rehabilitative process has to be this stepwise progression of waking those muscles up, stimulating them, forcing that proprioception to switch on so that the muscles are doing their job. Phase 2 then is taking that into that dynamic movements, as I spoke about, while strengthening those structures that are injured, weak. And then we move into that final phase of rehabilitation, which is where we are making you stronger than you were before you went into that injury, and really doing that dynamic stuff with jumping side to side. And depending on which joint is injured, those particular exercises will be different, but we place a high load on you with in a stepwise progression, so that we know that when you return to running, the act of running is not going to be sore.
Lindsay, you mentioned those dynamic movements. One of the things that we talk about every now and again, particularly when we are doing our higher intensity running sessions, are these sort of like warm-up drills and that sort of thing. Does that fall into this part of the proprioception, like running drills? What are some of the things we can do like prior to a run to help sort of stimulate that activation of those little muscles?
Yeah, absolutely. So that would fall squarely into, like in an injury type of scenario, squarely into that final phase rehabilitation. But as part of your general maintenance and improvement of proprioception, particularly before hard sessions, activation drills are really good for helping to also over time improve that proprioception and balance. And those start with simple things like roll-ups, balancing on one leg, hopping on gently on one leg, doing like high knees, kickbacks, skipping drills, and even your kind of run-throughs ultimately are a really good way of activating and making sure that your muscles are switching on and off at the right time. So you really want to start off on the low end with some gentle stuff, balancing on one leg, moving into walking and pushing up onto a high toe, moving into something along the lines of quick feet, then rolling into high knees, butt kicks, and then into some skipping drills where you kind of jump up nice and high on one leg, and then into some run throughs. That would be quite a nice progression for you to do for some drills and proprioceptive stuff before you then launch into your high intensity workout.
Yeah, we've actually put together a drills sort of, I don't know what you would call it, a flow, essentially, if you'd like, for a better word, that if you would like, you can access it right now. I'll put the link into the show notes for this episode as well. You can click on it. It'll take you through to our website where you can get access to that, like those exercises that Lindsay just mentioned, with a short little video showing you exactly how to do it. And you can just do that as a sort of run into your higher intensity session. And then, Lindsay, just to talk strength training. I mean, obviously strength training, we talk about it a lot here at CoachParry.com, particularly for the over 50s run and how important strength training is. And now we're throwing something else on top of it. You talk about the sort of drills and that sort of thing, but it doesn't have to be a standalone. You can incorporate those too. And that's one of the things that I love about our strength classes is towards the end of each strength class, our coaches do something that they call foot core, which a lot of it plays into this proprioception side of stuff. It's, I mean, we all love running. Strength training, not so much. So now you want to throw something else in to combine the two. Actually does make sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And look, the beauty of this proprioceptive stuff is that we're literally talking like 5 to 10 minutes. That's it. That's all we need. And so it's not a lot of exercises. It's 2 to 3 exercises per day or 3 to 4 times a week. And as you said, that can be incorporated as part of your strength sessions. So if you're doing 2 strength sessions a week, that takes care of 2 of your proprioception or stability stuff, and then as a warm-up or activation to higher intensity session. So then you're into a minimum of 3 times a week. Plus you throw in a little bit of doing it while you're brushing your teeth and that kind of thing. It's very, like with proprioception, it's a easy fix that really doesn't take a lot of your time to get it done.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Lindsay, this has been such a great chat, and I think it's sort of something we almost we almost assume people know within our community and hopefully the larger running community, but I think it's important to talk about it, and hopefully people got a lot of value out of this. If there are topics that you'd like us to do a slightly deeper dive on, please do let us know. Be in touch. I'll pop our details into the description of this podcast as well. And we look forward to going and talking about more sort of things that we don't necessarily get the opportunity to talk about in depth on our YouTube channel or on other sort of channels. So hopefully we can do that. Yeah, Lindsay, I've loved this, and look forward to doing another one.
Yeah, Brad, that was awesome. And as I said at the start, very excited about the process. So let's see where it takes us.
Absolutely. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, please do leave us a rating or a review on whichever platform you are listening to. If you're watching it on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe on the channel so that you don't miss out on any future episodes as well. So from myself, Brad Naddelt, until next time, you look after yourself, and we look forward to catching up again soon. Cheers.